Welcome to Local Edition. Brad Pomerance here in Sacramento, joined by Sebastian Ridley-Thomas, member of the California State Assembly, representing significant portions of Los Angeles County, including my home. You are my member. It's good to see you, Mr. Assemblyman, my Assemblyman. Exactly. And you are now chair of Revenue and Taxation in the Assembly. I want to talk to you about what's happening in Washington.
Yes.
Because there is a lot of discussion going on about very significant federal tax reform.
Yes.
Starting with, I guess, what's known as a border adjustment tax.
Yes.
Sounds like a lot of SAT words to me, but
Yeah.
talk to us about that.
Essentially, what the feds are considering is overhauling the corporate and personal income tax system and simplifying it substantially. But they want to take away a lot of deductions. Those deductions will impact California and California taxpayers substantially. Our state's economy is most similar of any state to the federal economy, because of the diversity of industries that are resident here in California.
And through that reform measure, which looks at how corporations are taxed, like you said, and eliminating deductions, both corporate and personal, I understand there are discussions about eliminating the write-off for state income taxes.
Correct.
That could really be a dramatic hit for California.
Yes, and it's primarily for corporate entities.
Oh, not personal?
Not personal.
Okay.
That deduct their state income tax burden from their federal income tax burden. So if you pay a certain amount in state tax and your state has an income tax, you do not have to pay it at the federal level. And it would impact the incentive for corporate domiciles to be in California. That's why it's of such great concern to California and a few other states, including New York.
But if they do change the way corporations are taxed, looking more at where products, whether they're made or produced domestically or internationally, would that offset in such a way that the hit of not being allowed to cut or deduct the California state income tax, would that offset it?
There will be multiple impacts, but the destination-based cash flow tax, also known as the border adjustment, will impact California positively and negatively on the revenue side, because we are such a large trading state, and we have a great deal of international trade. It will potentially make exports more expensive.
Right.
And
that's really the intent of the new administration.
Yes.
They're trying to create a scenario where products are manufactured domestically.
Yes.
And, that both brings up a whole host of issues.
Right. So we anticipate that on exports and imports, the state will there will be some winners and some losers. The Retail Industry Federation leaders are going to head to Washington, D.C. to lobby from their perspective. Retail goods are manufactured in a number of places, primarily abroad, though we do have a substantial manufacturing retail sector in downtown Los Angeles, and the garment district and places and the like. But they're going to be broad impacts. So the state is going to closely track the federal efforts, and we're going to have a conversation from the state perspective to see if we enact our own tax reform plan, because it may be time for California to consider a tax reform measure that would be phased in over a number of years so as to minimize economic impact.
And I want to ask about that, but I also want to get a sense as to whether, if the feds do engage in this grand tax reform, because border is implicated, border adjustment tax, are we at risk of triggering a trade war?
Well, potentially. The real impact is that foreign-produced goods, and those that come in are more expensive.
Right.
The dollar is more valuable.
Right.
But foreign holdings are less valuable.
Right.
So you got a win-loss in each category.
But I'm just wondering if perception trumps reality. Because,
pun intended.
Pun intended or not, I'm not sure. Because, look, there's no question that the new president has talked about tariffs and
Right.
trying to level the playing field.
Right.
There may be some merit there.
Right.
But I'm just, one could worry that if you start changing the tax structure, the reasons may be benevolent.
Right.
In such a way that exports become more, or imports become more expensive.
Right.
That you're just creating a scenario where you're inviting disdain.
Well, here's something for the internationalists and all of us. We
Right.
do have this thing called the World Trade Organization,
Yes.
and it enforced the treaties and tariffs that the United States is currently a part of, and the border adjustment and our trade and tariff policy will be mitigated and negotiated through the World Trade Organization in some measure. So I don't view it as a hit on that. And from a California perspective, given our significant port volume, we will be monitoring it closely because we will have portions of the state that will benefit substantially from corporate and personal income tax reform, and some that will have to adjust.
But let's talk about the ports, because look, the new president during the campaign made it very clear he wants to bring jobs back to America.
Yes.
That may be a benevolent goal.
Right, but it would affect the ports.
In a huge way.
Yes.
And you know better than I that the ports are a huge economic driver
Goods movement,
to the entire Southern California, Southwest United
Right.
States.
Yeah. So, and then the other piece is that trucks and rail move many of those goods,
Right.
and there are substantial economies in states that were Trump country.
Right.
So things may sound better on the campaign trail than they are enacted in policy. That's why I think that this will be a phased-in process. It will not be soon. That's why I don't think you're going to see an immediate, for example, with the Affordable Care Act,
Right.
where there are half-dozen taxes that you have to figure out how you mitigate if you're going to change the system. I think these are going to take a great deal of time. Where we have arrived to in our tax policy has taken 30 years. 1986 was the last tax
Right,
reform,
of course.
major tax reform overhaul. So it will take some time, at least several months, if not longer, to work through the complicated issues associated with goods movement, with the World Trade Organization, with our trading partners. And we have heavy trading partners in Southeast Asia, for example,
Right.
from a California perspective.
Well, what about Mexico?
And Europe and North America and Canada, yes. So, and Central America. So we will be carefully examining that. And that's why it's good that we had this
Right.
call recently.
Right.
And
Tell us about this call.
Yes, Vice Chair of the Board of Equalization, Diane Harkin,
Sure.
and myself jointly hosted a call with former Ways and Means Chairman Dave Camp,
Oh, yes.
Victor Fleischer, who's the Senior Tax Counsel for the Senate Finance Committee's Democrats, the U.S. Senate Finance Committee's Democrats, and then two of the intellectual heavyweights in tax reform who have both at different times worked for the Joint Committee on Taxation at the federal level, Professor Alan Auerbach from UC Berkeley and Professor Kleinbart from USC. And we just had a thorough dialogue about the implications for California.
Will you come back and continue this conversation? Because
love to.
obviously, like you said, this could have very dramatic ramifications, some good, some bad,
Yeah.
but we need to parse them out.
That's right. Thank
His name is Sebastian Ridley-Thomas. He is a member of the California State Assembly representing me and others, of course. You are watching us on Local Edition.